Welcome to the Rainmaker Multiplier on Demand, a podcast for leading financial professionals, or rainmakers, and their teams that offer support for securing a successful future. From marketing help to staffing structure, listen and subscribe for actionable insights from advisors and skilled professionals alike.
Thank you all for being here for this week's coffee break. As Elaine said, a great topic this week on COI processes and invigorating our growth. A popular topic here. I know one we've covered in other coffee breaks previously on our podcast, and some of the collegians and that. So we figured let's dive in a little bit and bring on two of our resident experts within the C2P community, Dave Buckwald from OneTeam Financial and Gary Pelfrey, of course. Gary, you returning for multiple shows here with us, but from JL Smith, talking about the COI process that we've developed and running over at JL Smith. So I anticipate a lot of questions from the group. So if you have anything or tips that you have that are working, please share those in the comments. Would love to hear those and address those as we get on with the show today. But we'll start, Dave. We'll start with you. I'll give this. Please give us a brief overview of the center of influence process that you're currently utilizing. I know I've worked closely with you and Gina and Greg from your team on what you guys have. So could you share with the group what you guys are doing over there at OneTeam?
So the COI market, as we all know, usually leads to bigger clients, and it usually leads to shorter sales cycles. And I've been doing this now for 35 years, and everyone I know that is very, very successful in this business all has very close relationships with either CPAs, tax attorneys, or it could be property and casualty, it could be divorce attorneys. But my main area of focus is tax attorneys and CPAs. So when we first started getting into this, I really wanted to carve out my 5 or 10 biggest clients, my 5 or 10 best clients, and I wanted to get to know their advisors. And so that was originally how it started. And then our process is to go out and make no mistake, it's an interview, right? You're interviewing them as much as they are interviewing you. And I think our process has gotten a lot better because I probably made every possible mistake you could have made along the way. And usually going in, like most financial advisors or insurance people, you look and you all smell the same. So, and most people in this business, as I say, have diarrhea of the mouth. And they love to talk about their firms and their companies and how great they are. You look the same, you smell the same, and you act the same. And they all sit there with their hands folded, and they take it out of obligation because you may share a mutual client. So we really tried to refine our process, a lot of work and collaborating with C2P, and really make this an interview and make it really all about them. I mean, that is the key, to make it all about them and ask them questions about what differentiates them in the marketplace, and listen. And I think the number one key to being successful these days is being a very, very, very good question asker and be a very, very good empathetic listener, which means don't one-up people, don't finish their sentences, definitely don't brag about how great your kids are, because they don't care. People like to talk about themselves. So when you're there, you want to interview them and you want to make sure that they have clients that you want, that they have ideal clients. So you don't know what your ideal client looks like, and you ask them. But most of the time, all the time, it's really an interview that I'm asking them questions. The biggest ones we ask is, what differentiates you from the competition? What do your clients love about you? And then I really want to get to the part is, what are your biggest challenges? And really listen and repeat that back to them, because doing enough of these interviews, the challenges are the same for a small business owner. And that's what CPAs and attorneys are, right? They spend too much time with their C and D clients putting out fires. They don't spend enough time with their A clients. They have trouble marketing. They have trouble branding. They have trouble adding value to the A clients. They need diversified streams of revenue. They're worried about getting commoditized, gobbled up. I mean, they all have the same challenges, which we've all heard. But my biggest thing is, I want to listen. I want to hear what their challenges are. I repeat that back to them so they know that they've been heard before I get into our unique differentiators on how we think we can help them solve their problems.
No, That's very helpful. And I think you mentioned a couple things in there that we'll probably touch on later in a couple of our other questions. But Gary, do you mind kind of talking through what we've developed and are executing and you're leading the charge on over at JL Smith?
Yes. Thank you, Matt. It's great to be here and an honor, certainly. In being highly involved in the business development area here at JL Smith as we continue to grow, what we realized, Matt, is we really need to try to make our lives easier in the future, right? And how can we do that? Well, conditioning and coaching and meeting with COIs was one of those areas where we, along with filtering through with right fit calls and things like that, where we're able to have prospects come in and know right out the gate that they're highly likely they're going to be a potential fit for the firm. So that's identifying is certainly important, as Dave said, identifying who can help you in your specific market, right? Targeting the COIs by profession is super important because that's the starting point, right? We need to know who we need to prospect to as COIs, so that way we're utilizing our time in that area as efficiently as we can. But in my research, really leaning on the experts, Dave Buckwald, Brian Sack, Scott Ford, or all those resources that I tapped into. So that way we could mimic what the successful folks were doing in COI, and we could mimic that here at JL Smith. So a good starting point, Matt, was one, educating our team on what is a COI and the difference between an advocate and a COI. So that's super important because I think that gets confused at times. So I just wanted to kind of highlight that. What is an advocate? An advocate is a person or client who refers you people they know, right? So this could be a client, this could be an associate or someone in your natural market, but here's what we know about the advocate. It's not sustainable, right? Eventually, at some point, they're going to run out of people to introduce you to. So an advocate is different than a COI. A true COI is a person who is in a position of influence over our target market, right? Which is why it's important to target the professions that can help your market, but who can continually assist in new introductions that will never run out. So it's sustainability, right? Sustainability is the key here. And the other thing we need to understand is this is a long play. It will take some time to find those professionals who know who you help best, right? So there's relationship building, there's prospecting, there's meetings that will happen. And we've built that out into our CRM so we can track those COI prospects and active COIs and really kind of track one, their profession, and also how many introductions they've given us and how many we've given them. The important thing we need to understand is we need to go first. And that's one of the biggest takeaways is make it all about them. It needs to be that way for a good portion of that relationship building. And that may take months and sometimes even years. But once those relationships are established, it kind of starts that reciprocation of you giving them introductions, them giving you introductions.
So Gary, I'm glad you mentioned too, like the long play, because I know that's something that we learned as we were gathering info from some of those people that you mentioned on there is like to make this successful, you can't go into that first meeting, your first date asking for referrals right out the gate. You got to establish that relationship and rapport.
Yeah, that's really the biggest no-no because that's going to turn them off immediately, right? Because what you want to understand, as Dave mentioned, is what are your biggest struggles and how can I help? How can I assist? Because you want to go first. You want to give them quite a few before you have that expectation of them returning the favor. So one of the other takeaways in my research with the experts who are successful is there really are some industries that you'll want to target. And there's a list of about 14, 15 different professions that can kind of get you in that right spot. And I have a list that I'd be able to share with the attendees here to get yourself started. But everyone's profession or of COI that can help them may be different depending on your firm and what you're actually looking for.
Right. And That's probably one of the first questions I hear when I'm meeting with advisors, whether within our C2P community or outside of it. Like, I know I need to do this. How do I get started? Like, where do I build this list? Like, Dave, I'll kick it back to you. I know you kind of mentioned that you went through your client, but can you talk about your and your team's process of how you identified kind of who you were going after first, and maybe did you divide and conquer, or did you lean on your own network, but kind of how you created your initial list?
Well, for me, as most of you on the call know, my passion is life insurance. I'm not the holistic advisor that most of the people in our firm are. So, some guys work with property and casualty agencies, having success there. When my area is life insurance, so I'm really focusing on the tax professionals because I think I can add a lot of value there pretty quickly. And I think we do things very, very differently than most life insurance people out there. So when I talk to them and the way we talk to them, it's different. But that's my passion. But other people, like you said, you have different occupation. It could be divorce attorneys, property and casualty people, mortgage people. I mean, there's so many different centers of influence, but I gravitate towards the ones that I think I can add the most value, where I can refer back to them. But I try and let them know as well, my real goal when I meet with an advisor, and I make this very clear with them, is to be a back office support to them in the more sophisticated insurance solutions, to make them look really smart in front of their clients, to further position them as their client's trusted advisor, to grow referrals, grow planning opportunities to their firm. So it's all about them. I've made so many mistakes doing this. Originally, I was like, hey, if you're an attorney or a CPA, let's go. And then realize they don't really have the clients that you really, really want. And then one of the biggest things, the longer I stay in this business, I don't want to spend time with clients or advisors that I really don't like and enjoy and want to spend time with. So the handful of advisors I have now, I really like them. We hang out, our wives hang out. It's fun. So again, that interview process early on, don't waste time if you can't see yourself being friends with this person in the future. It's all about them. What can I do to help them? And then interview, do you have clients that fit our ideal client profile? What's our unique value proposition that can help them solve their problems? And then do I like and enjoy and want to spend time with them?
So, Dave, do you go into that first meeting? You said the questions you have, and it might just be those few that you want to use to triage out, but do you go into those meetings with a set, agenda or a list of questions you need answered?
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm not the most formal with processes as probably I should be, but to me, I usually start out, hey, what's going on? What's great in your life right now? What's going on great? Kind of like you start off the L10 meeting. I don't want to hear about all the bad stuff, right? Tell me what's great in your life. What are you great at? What does your firm do that's great, that differentiates you from everybody else? And then we get into the stuff that I really want to hear about, the pain points, the struggles. And I know what they're going to be. I mean, the same as every small business owner. And then how we can add value and help them solve their problems. That's kind of the key for me.
Right. And like you said, people like talking about themselves. So asking about the positives going on in their life.
Like, how many times do you go to a cocktail party and you're like, this person didn't shut up the whole night. They didn't ask me one question about my life. They talked the whole night about, and they'll walk away and say, I love that guy, Dave. He didn't ask me one question. He didn't love me. I don't ever want to spend a minute with you ever again because you're a one-upper. You finish my sentences, you don't listen, and you constantly tell me how great your kids are. I mean, being a good, empathetic listener is an art, and it's so hard for people in this business. And that's the key. I mean, even the young people that start here, I'm like, we have an incredible fact finder, and a lot of it is from the questions we've developed together. Just be a great question asker and listen like you're all in, not when you're distracted, like you're on your first date or like you're with your biggest client. You're all in, tuned in, repeat back to them. Bill Bacharach, repeat back everything they said. They feel heard, they feel understood, they feel connected, like everybody else that comes through the door with their fancy BS brochures and how great their company is and blah, blah, blah. Nobody cares.
Follow that, Gary. No,
boy. No, I love that because Dave has a unique way of really hitting those impactful points, right? And simplifying. So I love that. And yeah, I mean, really, I think identifying, getting started is the key here, Matt. And we talk about COIs and processes, but let's dive in, right? And that's really where we're at now. What we want to do is kind of start building out that potential list of contacts, right? What can help us do that? It's those professions. It's also understanding, this is a key point here, knowing when a client's money is in motion, right? Knowing when a client's money is in motion. Those professionals that you're networking with, that you're having these meetings for COI with, help them understand who you help best so they can identify when that money's in motion. Okay, here's a time where they can use Dave or Gary or the JL Smith Group or OneTeam. And I really think that's the biggest takeaway, right? Because you want to make this as easy for them as possible, as painless as possible. And Dave says, make it all about them. It needs to be all about them in order for them to feel comfortable. You want this to be more of a comfortable conversational meeting as opposed to something that's structured. And we all know this, these meetings can happen over a cocktail, over coffee, over lunch, informally. And that's really where you're going to get your best results. So understanding the target market of who you want to target is that starting point, man.
Yeah. And I know, Gary, you mentioned the kind of the list we have there, that we've added that target list that we've used at JL Smith. That's part of the COI process. It's in the LMS C2P. If you go in there, you can download that. It has what we do there. And then Gary, I know you've made it easy for your team too, having the documented questions that they can go and do. To what both you and Dave have said, go make the conversation natural. But if you need to lean back on it, we've got these questions that you can go forward with to open up that conversation. And from beyond the first meeting, now you've had that dialogue. It's a little easier to maintain that relationship.
Sure. And that's an important piece here, Matt, because the advisors, the biggest obstacle we get from the advisors is, I don't have time to do this. Where am I going to do this when I'm in meetings all day? Well, this is so important that you schedule time during the day if that's when it needs to happen.
Right.
This isn't only activity that happens after hours or in the evenings or the weekends. This is so important to your organization and the growth in the future that it's worth blocking out that hour somewhere in the day to meet with that potential COI or that active COI.
Right. Carl, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I wanted to say, well, I think one of the most important points that you can make in that first meeting with them is to open up, once you do all the meet and greet, is tell me what's your ideal client look like so I'll know who to refer to you. And you get them talking about who the client is, and at some point they'll ask you, well, what does your ideal client look like? So you're not getting a bunch of junk coming back and forth.
Great point. All right. So now let's say we fast forward a little. We've got our COIs. We've had a couple meetings here. Dave, I'll come back to you because I know your team does a very good job of this, but the ongoing communication and thought leadership that you share with your COIs and their network. Can you talk about what your team has brought to your COI network to make sure you're not only educating them, but their clients?
Yeah. So, I mean, again, how many people have gone out, had a great COI meeting? Oh, this is great, great, great. And it never goes anywhere. Right. So again, had many of those meetings as well. So the key, I believe, is consistent communication. It's the long game. It's just like Carrie told us the other day, social media, search engine optimization, all that stuff's the long game. Advisors are no different. So we drip on our advisors. We try to do monthly with something that's timely, relevant, and pertinent. And again, when I'm going after the CPAs and the attorneys, it's usually some tax idea. It's usually some planning idea. I try to have quarterly get-togethers with them, either lunch, cup of coffee, or I'll just say, hey, listen, I just came across a great idea. Again, I always come across a great idea. It might be the same idea, but it'll be new to them. I want to bounce it off you and get your opinion on it. Because then it puts them in the, oh, he wants my opinion. I always like to get people's opinion. And to me, the hottest one out there right now, And again, everyone knows I'm an insurance guy, but tax, right? That's how you get the higher net worth clients. Talk about taxes. Well, I don't know if anybody saw last week, we got probably the greatest free advertisement that I've ever seen in my career last week that I'm sharing with every CPA. I can't get it out fast enough. And that's Senator Wyden's proposal to Congress from the Senate Finance Committee that they want to tax the internal buildup of life insurance, specifically private placement. Now, we don't think that's going to pass between the Republican House, and half the Democrats have the stuff. So, but it's on their radar. And basically it says all these greed plans or overfunded life insurance or LIRPs, whatever the heck you guys call them. I call them the greed plans. I tell people, I said, see, I've been telling you, Congress says it's too good a deal. I've been telling you this for years. It's too good a deal. So don't give me this Susie Orman, Ken Fisher, life insurance is a bad investment. No, you bought it from a bad advisor. You bought an expensive product. You didn't design it properly to maximize the IRR. And Congress now is supporting everything we say. I'm like, guys, if you can't sell overfunded life insurance right now, you're never going to be able to sell it. Let's walk around with what Congress is doing. They want to tax it. They say it's too good a deal. So I can't get this stuff out fast enough. It's just the greatest thing. I don't know if you guys got it. I'm happy to forward it to you, but it's incredible. So that's what I'm doing all over that right now. Other stuff I have might be tax management journey stuff.
Right.
It's awesome. It's awesome because no one's talking about this stuff.
Yep, it's the timely stuff. And I guess, Gary, for you, what we're doing at JL Smith, but you could speak a little bit to maybe pick one of them because I know we got a little more to cover. But we're doing the ongoing podcast with different thought leadership, the timely stuff, and also kind of the small group dinners and events that I think we've talked about previously. But if you want to give a brief outline of those.
Yeah, I mean, our small group events have been really successful. These are where we target really a blue diamond client, which is our top clients, or a potential COI or active COI. And we encourage them to bring a friend, right? And what we do is we communicate with that COI or blue diamond client, and we get an understanding of what their interests are. Like, hey, what do you enjoy doing, right? What do you do in your spare time? What are some of your hobbies? Because then we can tailor that small group event around those things that they enjoy, because that's going to make it very easy for them to get that other couple or two couples to come, because generally they enjoy doing the same things, right? So we really kind of make that the focus, and it's not something that's scripted. There's no presentation. It is kind of that natural flow, right? That happens over dinner or that cocktail hour or whatever it may be, or that outing. So those small group blue diamond events are more of a spear fishing approach, right? Versus kind of casting a big net. So we enjoy that. Relative spend is usually about the same, but a lot of times we're getting 2, 3, 4 new introductions or potential clients or COIs. So we use that kind of as a dual opportunity. So along with that, we also have our local minor league baseball team, the Crushers, and we use our suite there also to invite and use that for business development as well. So that's one thing we're doing. The other thing I don't want to miss here is we have built out into our process what's called the email campaign or drip campaign to our COIs based off their profession, right? We want to tailor content to their profession or to what's going to help their clients, because that keeps us in front of them, right? So we have a whole 12-month schedule of activity that happens to cultivate these relationships. So super excited too to share that, Matt. I know that's also one of the things
we always appreciate that.
we can add, but it's multiplying our time. When it comes down to it, we're doing that with the drip campaign. We're multiplying our time developing these new relationships with these COIs, because that's really what we need to do as we scale up and continue to grow in order to utilize our associates and advisors' time in the most efficient manner.
Yep. And I mean, man, it's a shame this went by fast because I got like 4 more questions to go through and we only got 3 minutes. So I guess we'll kind of like land the plane with this. Dave, we'll come back to you to close. For anyone that's on here, either attending today or listening to the podcast after, like what's one piece of advice or tip that you've learned along the way that's probably the most important for someone that's either getting started with this or they've got something going but haven't gotten the traction from it, and so trying to tweak and optimize that? What's one piece you could kind of leave us with?
I think again, when you go after advisors that you want to work with, ask great questions, be a good listener, and help them solutions that will solve their problems instead of talking about yourself. But again, this is part of the process, right? Like social media, referrals are always the best. Referrals can happen the quickest, but referrals usually never refer you upward, right? They usually refer you downward. Gary said it, scale up. So that's why we want to do the advisor marketplace, because they are usually the trusted advisor. It accelerates the sales cycle, but it's the long game. But referrals to me are always the best way to get started. But just know you're usually getting referred. When you talk to an employee, they never refer you to their boss. Now, the boss might refer you to his employees, which is a great referral, assuming the employees meet your ideal client profile. Those are awesome because they're usually going to take that meeting when the boss says to take it. But employees never refer you to their boss. So that's why we like the COIs as part of your campaign, in addition to referrals and everything else that you're doing.
Great. And Gary, any last words from you?
Yeah, I mean, dive in, get started. And how can we do that? Well, let's piggyback off of things that we're already doing. And what I mean by that is we all do annual reviews with our clients. Get to know who the players on their team are, the professionals that are already on their team, their CPAs, their mortgage brokers, their attorneys. Get to know the players on their team, because that's going to be a warm introduction for you, right? At some point, you're going to have the comfort and the ability to say, hey, I understand you have these players on your team. I want to make sure in the community that it's known who we help best. I'd love to give them a call and just share with them how we can help them and some of their other clients. Would you be opposed to that? Most of the time, it's going to be no. I'm all for that. So we're already doing that annual review. Get to know the players and professionals on your client's team, because that can be a great starting point of a warm list to get to know some other potential COIs. And for multitasking and again, multiplying our time when we're doing that.
Great. Thank you, Gary. And as a reminder, don't forget Gary is on our mentor portal, so you can book with Gary to discuss all this. Dave, Gary, thank you both very much for sharing your thought leadership with us here today. Anyone's free to reach out to them. Thank you all for attending. Don't miss next week. Actually, as Dave mentioned, kind of the flip side of this, the referral side. Jason is going to be covering that with our guest, Bill Cates, returning. So have a good rest of your day and hope to see you all back here next week.